On this edition of Friday Night Arcade, I'm taking a look at a request from Larry. This one is Codename Iceman, a 1989 parser adventure done in the style of James Bond and released by Sierra Online. I'll admit, this game doesn't hook me out of the gate as it gets off to a little bit of a weird start. The story opens with our hero, Naval Officer John Westland, soaking up some rays on the beach while on military leave. A cute girl walks by and, never mind. You jump in on a game of volleyball down beach, and when one of the girls jumps into the water to retrieve the ball, she begins drowning, and you, being the big, strong, manly man hero, have to jump in and save her. This is actually a bit of an ordeal, and you have to perform CPR. The game even refers you to the manual for specific instructions, and you have to give a parser command for each step. If I didn't know better, I'd say the developers were trying to teach you something. Neat idea, but it's a bit tedious in execution. You keep exploring the island in all your manly Hawaiian shirt glory. There's not much else to do here, but the visuals are pretty cool. I loved this era of visuals from Sierra. Codename Iceman utilizes the SCI engine, and the graphics should look familiar to fans of early Quest for Glory titles and the later Space Quest games. Anyway, so you wander around for a bit and eventually go back to the hotel, pick up your key, and start flirting with a random girl at the bar. This seems like a game of a guy just frittering away his afternoon. The girl introduces herself as Stacy. You buy her a drink, invite her to dance, and what kind of dancing is this? Eventually, Stacy asks, "Would you like to come back to my place?" Whoa, what kind of game is this? You follow her back to her place and start making out. The music sounds like something out of an 80s Skinamax flick. You keep making out with her and eventually, oh yeah, fireworks, baby. And that's just how this game starts off. You wake up the next morning to an empty bed, and after surveying the wreckage, you discover a note. Stacy Dear John'd you after one night. You seem to recall her rambling on about a missing earring somewhere during the throes of passion the night before, and after some searching, you find the earring outside of her hut. Upon examination though, that's no ordinary earring. It contains a mysterious piece of microfilm. Turns out, Stacy was a spy, and now things start to get interesting. Well, okay, that's a bit of a stretch. I had the benefit of a walkthrough, but trying to figure everything out to get to this point would probably be a chore. For me, this wasn't nearly as interesting as, say, starting out on the garbage freighter on Space Quest 3 and having to piece together all of the parts of your ship before you can escape. Still though, if you're willing to go through all of that, there's an interesting Sierra adventure hiding in here somewhere. You find out that Russian-backed terrorists have kidnapped a US ambassador and are holding him for $10 million in ransom. The US president is having none of it, and you're called back into action by your commanding officer. You get briefed on the situation and are tasked out to take control of a submarine as part of a covert military operation to rescue the ambassador. If the mission fails, this could in all likelihood trigger a nuclear war between the United States and Russia. Holy crap! On the surface it sounds pretty intense, and there's potential here to be fun as heck, but ultimately it's a bit of a drag. Simple things like going to the briefing room to get your orders is a drawn-out ordeal. There's a whole portion of the game that just involves driving to the Pentagon, showing your ID to a guard, taking an elevator, showing an ID to another guard, just to get to the briefing. Seems like a bit of a waste. Getting aboard the submarine incorporates some military protocol as well, and if you don't read the manual, you'll be a little bit lost. You have to first salute the flag, then salute the deck officer, then request permission to come aboard. It's kinda cool following military protocol and all, but it's also a little bit tedious. And if you think that's tedious, wait till you take control of the submarine. Yep. This is one of those games where you're going to need to have the manual nearby at all times. Just about everything on this screen has some sort of function, and there are at least a dozen keyboard commands to be aware of. On the one hand, the graphics inside the sub control room are pretty sweet to look at, and I always loved this era of Sierra artwork. I love all these detailed controls and switches, and I just think that looks cool as heck. But on the other hand, actually controlling this thing is, at best, an exercise in drudgery, and at worst, it's a total disaster. One wrong move and it's instant death here, instant death there. Look, those of you that watch the channel often, you know me. And you know I love a good trial and error situation, but even this grated on my senses. On the one hand, I applaud the effort to try to create a realistic submarine control situation, and it reminds me a little bit of Silent Service on the NES, but on the other hand, who wants to take the time to figure all this crap out? When you first take control, the commanding officer on board is giving you directions, and there's a rhythm and timing to the process that you can't screw up on. There's no room for error, so you're pretty much going to have to spam extra game saves to make any forward progress. This makes escaping the garbage freighter on Space Quest 3 look like Super R-Type. I guess it's pretty cool that they tried to come up with something different here, and like I said, I love the graphics, but I feel like you either needed to commit to making an interesting text adventure or commit to making a submarine simulator. Trying to do both just didn't work. It's a shame too, because there are some good ideas here, but take out some of the procedural tedium and dumb down the sub-controls a bit, then focus on the adventure aspects. Look, controls are going to be bad in a parser adventure anyway, we accept that, so don't make it any more complicated than it has to be. This is nowhere near as fun as fiddling with the navigational computer in Space Quest 3, it's just frustrating. Speaking of which, the deaths are not nearly as humorous or interesting. In Space Quest 3, at least when you die, there's some hilariously dark humor sprinkled in to keep you interested. Here it's just boring. Your sub crashed, oh hey, crashed again, cool. Another issue is that this game is totally full of dead ends. More so than most games of this ilk that come to mind. It's possible to miss some mundane clue or object early in the game, and rather than the game holding you back until you find the object, it's possible to proceed and even make it 2/3 of the way through before you realize you're hosed. For example, you have to give your ID to the guard before you go into the briefing room. For some inexplicable reason, he puts it in his pocket before you go in, so naturally, when you come back out, you grab it from him. Simple enough, right? Nope. If you don't check the card after he gives it to you, you won't realize that he gave you the wrong person's ID. You have to talk to him again in order to get your real ID back. But unless you check it, you won't realize what happened until later in the game, thus forcing you to replay most or all of the game depending on how you manage your save files. So alas, I can't really recommend Codename Iceman unless you just want to try out something different from Sierra outside of their standard King's Quest or Space Quest entries. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's awful, and I do love the graphical style, but I would warn that this game tests even the most patient of puzzle gamer. It's out there on GOG for like $6 if you want to give it a try, or play a mean joke on a friend. I don't know, what do you think? Am I being too hard on this game? I'll admit, I am playing this for the first time now as opposed to having an emotional connection to it from my youth. Did you play this growing up? I'd love to hear from anybody that actually willingly played through this in its entirety without utilizing a walkthrough. Hey, thanks for watching everybody. We'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.